Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. We are reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, and literally we'll be reading for several verses till the end of the chapter. So there's a reading session. Canto 10, chapter 71, entitled The Lord Travels to Indraprastha, text 33 till the end, I'll say. Few verses. Okay. Praptam Nishamya Naram Lochanam Pana Patram Autsukya Vishalathita Klesha Dukula Bandha Sadya Visrijya Griha Karma Patik Patin Cha Talpe Drashtum Yayu Yauvatayam Sma Naraindra Marge Praptam Nishamya Naralochana Panapatram Praptam Nishamya Naralochana Panapatram Autsukya Vishalita Klesha Dukla Bandha Autsukya Vishalatita Klesha Dukla Bandha Sadyo Vritsejya Griha Kama Karma Patim Shatalpe Sadyo Visrijya Griha Karma Patim Shapatalpe Drashtum Yayur Yuvataya Smanarendra Marge Drashtum Yayur Yuvataya Smanarendra Marge Praptam Nishamya Naralochana Panapatram Atu Sukya Vilashita Klesha Dukla Bandha Dukula Sadyo Vrisrijya Griha Karma Patim Shaptalpe Drashtum Yayur Yuvataya Smanarendra Marge Praptam Nishamya Naralochana Panapatram Autsukya Vishalita Klesha Dukla Bandha Sadyo Visrijya Griha Karma Patim Shatalpe Drashtum Yayur Yuvatah Smanarendra Marge talpe. Praptam Shamyanaralochana Panapatram Sukla Vishalita Kesha Dukapanda Vritsitya Grihakan Drashtum Yayurivata Salmanarendra Mage Mataji. Patram Shamyanaralochana Panapatram Sukhi Shalita Keshaduka Banda Sadhyo Vritsrecha Griha Karma Patim Shatalpe Drashtum Yayurivata Smanarendra Marge Praptam arrived Nishamya hearing Nara of man Lochana of the eyes Pana of drinking Patram the object or reservoir Autsukya out of their eagerness. Vishlathita, loosened. Klesha, their hair. Dukula, of their dresses. Bandha, and the knots. Sadhya, immediately. Visrijya, abandoning. Griha, of the household. Karma, their work. Patin, their husbands. Cha, and. Talpe, in bed. Drashtum, to see. Yayu, went. Yauvataya, the young girls. Sma, indeed. Naraindra, of the king. Marge, unto the road. Translation by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. When the young women of the city heard that Lord Krishna, the reservoir of pleasure for human eyes, had arrived, they hurriedly went onto the royal road to see him. They abandoned their household duties and even left their husbands in bed, and in their eagerness the knots of their hair and garments came loose. Om Jnana Timirandasya Gyananjana Shalaka Chakshurmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaham Sri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stavitam Yena Bhutale Swayamrupa Kada Mayam Dadati Svapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shutapada Kamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavam Shcha Shri Rupam Sagra Jatam Sahagana Raghunathan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Shri Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sagana Lalita Vishak Shri Chak Kamcha E Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopisha Gopika Kantarada Kanta Namastute Tapta Kanchana Gorangira Devrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrindam Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Praptam nishamya naralochana panapatram autsukya vishalita klesha dukula bandam sadyo visrijya griha karma patimshchatalpe drashtum yayur yavataya smanarendra marge. When the young women of the city heard that Lord Krishna, the reservoir of pleasure for human eyes, had arrived, they hurriedly went onto the royal road to see him. They abandoned their household duties and even left their husbands in bed. And in their eagerness, the knots of their hair and garments came loose. This is description of Krishna arriving to Indraprastha city, and when the citizens heard that Krishna is coming, they all became very jubilant and very eager to celebrate. Because without Krishna, without devotees of Krishna, those who are also devoted to spiritual path, those who are eager to advance in spiritual life, the life has no meaning. So when the citizens of Indraprastha heard that Krishna is coming, of course, what could be more greater delight than trying to see Krishna, trying to drink that nectar of whole Krishna's form, Krishna's appearance, Krishna's lila, pastimes, everything. Because we know in Mahabharata it is described when the Pandavas have been sent to exile, the residents of Hastinapur, they were not eager to remain in Hastinapur without presence of Pandavas. They were not interested in living in the whatever kind of sophisticated city at that point that was existing, or no matter how well organized, no matter how well managed, but without the devotees of Krishna, who had such a impeccable character, who were so exalted, who were so exemplary. They were not interested in that. Even though Duryodhana, just like Arjuna, was arguing in Srimad Bhagavad-gita, he was a very great politician. He was a very expert manager, diplomat. He had so many materially amazing, very powerful qualities. But still he lacked the devotion towards Krishna. And for that reason, of course, Krishna didn't want Kauravas to remain on the throne. He wanted Pandavas to reign. So when the Pandavas left Hastinapur, then all the citizens practically packed their things and they wanted to go along with them. They were so eager to be in association of the devotees. They had a taste of that devotional mellow. They had a taste of devotional care, of the spiritual process. So they wanted to abandon practically everything. They didn't care about their material necessities. They were just considered with bhakti. They were considered with devotion. So later on also we see that when Indraprastha was established, there are so many citizens who had those devotional qualities. They rushed towards Indraprastha to settle within Indraprastha. It was populated by so many, of course, different classes of people that is described, but they all had so much devotion towards Krishna. They were more interested in spiritual understanding than material necessities. So when Krishna came now, visited Indraprastha, those who have heard of Krishna and those who had some association with the Krishna, how could they remain indifferent? There was nobody as such. Everybody was just so eager because Krishna was definitely, as for any devotee, the goal of his life, and nothing else practically is as important as any kind of little tinge of association of Krishna's presence. So when Krishna was arriving and when they heard that Krishna is coming, everybody just dropped everything, just like we hear the gopis of Vrindavan, of course, with much greater devotion, with much greater eagerness they just left everything, whatever they have been performing, any household duties, even like here it is described, some husbands that were there in the bed, or whatever. It just, none of this didn't matter, because Krishna is the absolute goal of everyone's life. Krishna is the absolute source of everything that anyone is looking for. So when they heard about Krishna, they were just so eager to meet Krishna, to offer some service to Krishna, to just be in any kind of proximity of Krishna. So in their eagerness, it's interesting, it is described that their hair and garments came loose. Again, there was such an intense longing to be in that association of Krishna, to see Krishna. It's just like we know, when Krishna is every day giving darshan, if we would have that kind of longing to have Krishna's darshan, because Krishna is coming, Krishna is appearing, and then we would also develop such kind of divine sentiments and even more eagerness to meet Krishna, to drink the beauty of Krishna's everyday darshan, because Krishna is here, Krishna is present. So if we would have that consciousness, then that also would be helping us so immensely to advance in the spiritual life. So that consciousness has to be developed. Of course, we are conditioned in so many ways, but Krishna is still so merciful, and He is appearing. He is always appearing. We should not think that Krishna is not present, or that Krishna is present only when He personally appears. Even then, of course, we know that many people couldn't recognize Krishna. They didn't have that appreciation. They didn't have that premanjana churita bhakti vilochanena. They didn't have that ointment of love. So we see that if such symptoms are displayed, that it doesn't matter how anyone is dressed, it doesn't matter what their kind of activities they're performing, they were so eagerly rushing just to meet Krishna, just to try to get a glimpse at least of what to speak if there would be any opportunity to serve, even coming closer. As we know in different dealings with Krishna, different rasas, different relationships, that one of the distance of awe and reverence, it is also there. But it is the lowest one. It is the lowest one. It is essential, of course, but it's the lowest one. But when one develops a service attitude, then that's much greater. And the greater the service, the greater again is that nectar that one can receive by associating very closely and intimately with Krishna. So then in the next verse, it is described that the royal road, being quite crowded with elephants, horses, chariots, and foot soldiers, the women climbed on the top of their houses, where they caught sight of Krishna and his queens. The city ladies scattered flowers upon the Lord, embraced him in their minds, and expressed their heartfelt welcome with broadly smiling glances. So here Sridhar Swami comments that the ladies communicated through their affectionate glances their eager inquiries as to the comfort of Lord Krishna's trip, and so on. In other words, in their ecstasy, they intensely desired to serve the Lord. So that desire to serve, that is natural propensity of the living entity. And what else could have been more accomplishing than having the opportunity to serve Krishna directly? So they were inquiring. They wanted to know everything about Krishna. This is natural. If we want to develop any relationship with anyone, we inquire. We inquire about so many things, about their well-being, about their situation, about their plans, about their activities. We inquire about so many things. And the more we know, of course, the more we can relate, or we can come to understand how to please that person, how to satisfy that person, and how to have that exchange within that relationship. So all the different citizens of Indraprastha were so eager to come in contact with Krishna. So it continues that observing Lord Mukunda's wives passing on the roads like stars accompanying moon, the woman exclaimed, "What have these ladies done, so that the best of men bestow their eyes the joy of his gorgeous smiles and playful sidelong glances?" So everybody was somewhat a little bit jealous also of the wives of Krishna, that what did they do that they had such an opportunity to have direct and such a constant association of the Lord. So in various palaces, citizens of the city came forward holding auspicious offerings for Lord Krishna, and sinless leaders of occupational guilds came forward to worship the Lord. So here Srila Prabhupada writes, while Lord Krishna was thus passing on the road, at intervals some of the opulent citizens, who were all rich, respectable, and freed from sinful activities, presented auspicious articles to the Lord, just to offer him reception to the city. Thus they worshipped him as humble servitors. So here the description is that the citizens were quite qualified, definitely, who can have an opportunity to live under the very expert guidance of the Pandavas, and then of course having the opportunity also to relish what they also relish, association with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So they were all trying to present all their best propensities that they have, facilities that they have, everything just to worship Krishna. So it continues, with wide open eyes, the members of the royal household came forward in a flurry to lovingly greet Lord Mukunda, and thus the Lord entered the royal palace. When Queen Pritha saw her nephew Krishna, the master of the three worlds, her heart became filled with love. Rising from her couch with her daughter-in-law, she embraced the Lord. So Queen Kunti's daughter-in-law is the famous Draupadi. So when Krishna entered the palace, then Queen Kunti welcomed the Lord, and she embraced the Lord. It's very interesting. It's like when Krishna would meet Pandavas, that also there was that etiquette of displaying regard for all of them in a different way according to their seniority. To King Yudhishthir, Krishna would touch the feet, Bhima and Arjuna he would embrace, and then he would allow Nakula and Sahadev to touch his feet. So here we see that out of motherly love, we see that Queen Kunti, she embraced the Lord. So King Yudhishthir respectfully brought Lord Govinda, the supreme God of gods, to his personal quarters. The king was so overcome with joy that he could not remember all the rituals of worship. The purport, Srila Prabhupada again is quoted, says, as he brought Krishna within the palace, King Yudhishthir became so confused in his jubilation that he practically forgot that what he was to do at that time in order to receive Krishna and worship him properly. So this is just like the pastime in Mahabharata, when Krishna also visited Vidura's home. Vidura was so much overwhelmed with the ecstasy that instead of offering banana, then he offered the peel, chilka. No, he offered the coffee. He was completely confused. It's just, we can definitely not try to, I mean, we could imagine, but to try to have that kind of experience of such a joy that somebody who is very dear, well, sometimes in some moments maybe we know who is very dear to our heart. And when they come, when somebody appears like this and we have some opportunity to serve, definitely we make so many mistakes. Like sometimes it happens when the spiritual master comes, right? You're supposed to do so many things. You may even plan so many things in advance, but then everything becomes sometimes topsy-turvy. And spiritual master has to, he tolerates so many inconveniences that are caused to him just because of someone's devotion. And he can perceive when there is devotion. Of course, he can perceive when there is negligence. That is also there. But out of devotion, many times we have experienced, it does happen. Sometimes some inappropriate things are performed. So, but that it's tolerated. That it's tolerated. That it's ignored practically. That it's overseen. Because what it matters, it's devotion. It doesn't matter how the things are presented or performed, but it's the devotion. And that's always what Krishna looks. Krishna looks what is the devotion behind anything that is offered to him. So here also we see that Yudhishthira was so overwhelmed, he was so happy that Krishna had come, that he had completely forgot to present all different articles of worship. And of course, in hospitality, there are so many different instructions that are given. I mean, how to please the guest. Especially we hear so many times the term Atiti Devo Bhava, how everything should be offered. Like King Rantidev, offering everything before even one take his own meal, should fully satisfy all the guests and whoever comes, and no matter how many, so many different sacrifices are performed on the part of Grihasta, who is awaiting so many, or even if he doesn't await, so many guests that arrive. So there are so many duties, there are so many injunctions how to create a hospitable atmosphere. And it is said, even if nothing else, if one cannot offer a seat, even if one cannot offer water, but if nothing else, then at least some pleasing words should be exchanged and offered. So King Yudhishthira, definitely he was king, he had all the royal opulences at his disposal. So what is there that he could not offer to Krishna? And he was eager to offer this, but just being so overwhelmed by Krishna's presence. And we see that he wasn't able to offer all of that in the expected manner, according to household life and life of hospitality. So they were so devotional, Pandavas were so devotional, that Krishna, before battle of Kurukshetra, stayed several months in Indraprastha, and after the battle of Kurukshetra, stayed in Indraprastha. So even though Krishna wanted to leave for Dwarka, especially after the battle of Kurukshetra, because he also had other devotees awaiting for him. He had so many. Here he came with his queens, but still there are so many other citizens of Dwarka that were also eagerly awaiting for him. Same way, just like we hear now, the residents of Indraprastha. So he was attempting to leave, but they wouldn't let him go. They wouldn't let him go. It is just like Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, when we wanted to go to the South Indian tour, devotees were always giving some kind of excuses. No, now it's not auspicious time, it's not good, you cannot go, you should stay for a little longer. And then, oh no, now Ratha Yatra is coming, which is coming, and now you cannot go, then you should go some other time, or now this festival is coming. They were always like, for so much, so many times they postponed the Lord's travels. And then finally, of course, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he just left. Just left out of that. And the culture is that even when the guest leaves, they wouldn't just, close the door and let him go. They would accompany him. It is described in Mahabharata that Pandavas, when Krishna left, they would accompany him. They would go so far in the distance until Krishna would have to request them, no, please, you go home. Now, please, you go for many kilometers, for so long. And so, like this, Krishna was attempting also to leave Indraprastha many times. under, of course, very reasonable pretext of going to Dwarka, where he was also required, his presence was required and desired. But Yudhishthira was so devotional, Pandavas were so devotional, Draupadi was so devotional, so surrendered. We can't imagine, because this is the nature of devotional life. We know that in Vraja, in Vrindavan, that everything the best, and in a best state of consciousness, the best state of surrender, it's always performed Krishna at every moment. It's not like we keep some reservation. Sometimes we think, oh yes, I can just do something ritualistically or whatever, like in some kind of a mechanical, regular manner. But no, it is the topmost devotion. Whatever best they have, like when Mother Yashoda cooks for Krishna, it cooks all. She makes sure it's the best preparation ever. Now, that this is the best preparation, and it puts so much love into it, just to bind Krishna with that love. Because they all know, gopis also act in the same way, cowherd boys also act in the same way, all the residents of Vrindavan act in the same way. They want to bind Krishna with love. They don't want to let Krishna go. Because they know Krishna is not theirs. In a sense, they think Krishna belongs to Mathura. So any moment he can go to Mathura. Any moment he can decide and go back to his own kind of original parents, which they consider as such. Yeah? So they always have that fear of that separation, and they're always eager to do everything the best so that Krishna will remain with them. So every moment, there's such an intensity, we can't imagine that kind of intensity, that kind of eagerness, like it's described here, such an eagerness. Just as we know, in one of the principles of deity worship is also to do something different every day, something new, something additional. Why? Because to express the love. It's not some ritualistic, performance or whatever, every day's same thing. No, it's something different, something unique. And this is what the residents of Indraprastha also, as we know, as the residents of Raja, they always try to compete, they always try to outdo themselves, first of all. To try to do something better, to try to do something greater for Krishna, to please, to express that devotion that they have. So they don't want to let Krishna go. I will say, although Krishna wanted to leave so many times. One of the interesting reasons that was described, and it's commented by Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, is that Krishna also had another reason to remain in Indraprastha. Of course, he didn't disclose this to Pandavas, but another reason was he was waiting for Lord Bhishmadev to leave the body. We know that Bhishmadev had a boon given by his father to leave the body whenever he wanted. So apparently, usually what is the description, what is the understanding, is that he was waiting for auspicious time to leave the body. Uttarayan, right? When the sun would enter the northern hemisphere. But that is not the reason, according to Vishwanath Chakravarti. That is not the real reason. He gives very interesting explanation. Because we hear in Bhagavad-gita that if the yogi passes during that northern transit of the sun, he elevates himself to the higher planets, he can achieve liberation. But it is considered very inauspicious if one leaves the body during Uttarayan time, that it's not very auspicious, or one goes down to the lower planetary systems. But for devotee, that doesn't matter. For devotee, that doesn't matter. We also see in the Vaishnava calendar, we'll see, there's so many devotees who left during apparently Dakshinayan. It doesn't matter. For devotees, that is not the absolute consideration, criteria for passing the body. So many exalted, pure devotees have left during Kartik, before Kartik, or whatever, during Dakshinayan. So that's not a consideration. But apparently for Bhishma that was. He wanted to leave when the sun enters northern hemisphere. But then, again, what was interesting, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur explains, he said that Uttara, it refers to mother of Parikshit Maharaj. Uttarayana Abhimanyu, no? So he said Ayana is like Narayana, shelter. Shayana, like the resting place. So he explains that actually Bhishma was waiting for Lord Krishna to come, to have his vision, have his darshan, have his mercy, have his instructions, have his sight when he is leaving the body. So this is why Krishna was waiting in Indraprastha to fulfill Bhishmadev's request as such. And then of course Bhishma gave his Shanti Parva instructions to King Yudhishthira, convinced him somehow to become the emperor of the world. And then he decided to leave. But leave in association of who? Of Krishna. Leave being focused, gazing at Krishna, seeing it, looking at Krishna, being fully focused at him. So this is another interesting reason that Krishna remained in Indraprastha and accepted the hospitality of the Pandavas, who were so devoted to him. Because we know nowadays what means it's hospitality. It's said like, we have a saying in the West, it's like, well, I try to, I don't know, it's in English, but that every guest, 3 days are enough. It's like 3 days and that's it. No? More than 3 days, it becomes a burden, becomes a difficulty to deal, to serve, to surrender, to do whatever. It's like, so that's a common notion and understanding that if you go somewhere, you just stay for 3 days. If you stay longer than that, then you're not going to be so much welcome anymore. That's like that. There is some story of someone who came to his father-in-law house, and then he was overstaying, and initially he was always fed. I mean, first 3 days he was fed so opulently, so many different things, so many preparations were there. And then when father-in-law understood that this person is going to stay longer, and he was overstaying, then he was reducing preparations. And one day no chapati, then another day no chapati, one sabji less, then no sweet, this, that, and finally it came only to dal. Still that person was not leaving. So if you don't want to entertain anyone at home, just don't feed him. So that's understood. That's a kind of some cultural understanding that you should go. It's kind of, so then finally, even then that person didn't want to go, and then the father-in-law with his son, he devised a plan that what should we do, and we should take the stick. And then they had to use the stick to chase away that person. It's like, so of course that's a very extreme type of circumstance, but there was no other way to make that person being responsible actually to some. He was not responsible. That person was not responsible. He also had some other duties to perform, which he wasn't. He was just taking advantage of a very comfortable situation. So hospitality, of course, in the Vedic culture, it is very deep. It is very it is permeated with a lot of affection, a lot of, as we said, surrender here, a lot of understanding how essential this is. Why? Because from even just material point of view, there's so many benefits that the person who serves receives. He serves, he develops good quality of someone he's serving. He's taking some very also positive merit. And on the contrary, if that's not the case, then he receives very bad karma. It is said, there are descriptions, if just like if somebody's home, it's the home, and to which a Vaishnav had never stepped in, then it is described, it's just like a hole of a jackal or a snake. So that's not a very good household. Or if somebody is not appropriately received, there are so many consequences that one may expect. So it's a very important aspect of exchange of human relationships and the spiritual advancement, cause for spiritual advancement or spiritual degradation. Just like when Pandavas were, there's so many instances of course, but Pandavas, when they were visiting in Eka Chakra, they were suggested by Vyasadeva to live in one Brahman's home. And they stayed there for a couple of months until the time came, they found out that there was one ghastly Rakshasa, Baka, who was tormenting people and the deal was settled that once a year one family will give one family member along with a cart full of food. And then the turn came to that family, and then everybody was sad, everybody was lamenting, everybody was so despondent. And Queen Kunti heard it. She's here embracing Krishna described. So she heard that. She heard the whole conversation. And she was wondering, while the other Pandavas were outside, they were collecting alms, doing madhukari. So she heard that conversation. It's a very, very, very touchy, very moving conversation, very emotional conversation, where each of them tries to volunteer that I will go. And you are so much more important than I am for so many reasons, and this, so I will go. So then the Brahmin said, he said, I will go. And then his wife said, no, I will go, you take care. Then he said, no, who will take care of all the children and this and that. Then the young daughter, she said, no, I will go. What is the use? You have to collect dowry, this, that for me. I will go, this will go. Then the small boy said, no, I will go. And I will chant some mantra, I will kill that Rakshas. And then everybody was laughing in spite of all such a very, emotional, sad circumstance. So King Kuti, she was hearing all of that. And then later on, when she thought it's an appropriate moment, that she approached, she said, well, I will send my son. I will send my son. And then they were all, how can you do this? You're our guest. How can we even think of such kind of inauspicious activity? For us, that we mistreat our guests in such a way that they accomplish the tasks that we are supposed to do. So they couldn't accept this, and but she convinced them somehow. She convinced them that Bhima is capable, that he knows certain mantras. He already did these things, that he will accomplish whatever has to be accomplished. So that is the mood, that hospitality, that the guest is really treated as the highest possible entity, like demigod, given everything. Everything is surrendered unto him, because that's the Dharma. That is Dharma, which makes one become purified, which makes man advanced in the spiritual life. So this is how we see that all the inhabitants of Indraprastha, it's not something that they have to acquire. They just have this naturally. They have this naturally because it's out of devotion. They have that natural devotion towards Krishna. So they don't have to practice, they don't have to imbibe it, they have it with themselves. Oops. 1 second. So then King Yudhishthir, we see, respectfully brought Lord Govinda. Yeah, so we read that he was so much in jubilation that he forgot what he was to do. So Lord Krishna bowed down to his aunt and wives of his elders, O king, and then Draupadi and the Lord's sister bowed down to him. So Srila Prabhupada is quoted here and said, Lord Krishna delightfully offered his respectful obeisances to Kunti and other elderly ladies of the palace. His younger sister Subhadra was also standing there with Draupadi, and both offered their respectful obeisances on the lotus feet of the Lord. Encouraged by her mother-in-law, Draupadi worshipped all the Lord Krishna's wives, including Rukmini, Satyabhama, Bhadra, Jambavati, Kalindi, Mitravinda, and descendants of Shibi. The chaste Nagnajiti and the other queens of the Lord who were present, Draupadi honored them with all such gifts as clothing, flower garlands, and jewelry. King Yudhishthir arranged for Krishna's rest and saw to it that all who came along with him, namely his queens, soldiers, ministers, and secretaries, were comfortably situated. He arranged that they would experience a new feature of reception every day, while they were staying as guests of the Pandavas. So this is the reception. This is amazing. It's just that it's not just the guest, but everybody who accompanies guests. Like sometimes back we told that story about Ramanujacharya visiting the house of the poor Brahmin. Before he visited the house of the poor Brahmin, and the wife who cooked for him, he visited one very wealthy disciple who was so also, he was in jubilation, he was so much in ecstasy that, oh, spiritual master is coming, Ramanujacharya is coming, this and that, but he didn't serve properly, he didn't even welcome, he didn't address practically his representatives, his disciples. He failed to do that. And that's why Ramanujacharya decided, I'm not going to his house. He didn't get the mercy. He missed that out. So we see what is the real reception. So it's not just the guest, but everybody who is accompanied, everybody who is there along with him. So desiring to please King Yudhishthira, the Lord resided at Indraprastha for several months, having a guest for several months. Of course, Krishna, he is eternal. But everybody wish him to remain eternally. During his stay, he and Arjuna satisfied fire god by offering him the Khandava forest. And they saved Mayadanava, who then built King Yudhishthira celestial assembly hall. The Lord also took the opportunity to go riding in his chariot in the company of Arjuna, surrounded by a retinue of soldiers. So we have a purport. Srila Prabhupada writes in Krishna, it was during this time that Lord Sri Krishna, with the help of Arjuna, for the satisfaction of the fire god Agni, allowed Agni to devour the Khandava forest. During the forest fire, Krishna saved the demon Mayasura, who was hiding in the forest. Upon being saved, Mayasura felt obliged to the Pandavas and Lord Krishna, and he constructed a wonderful assembly house within the city of Hastinapur. In this way, Lord Krishna, in order to please Yudhishthira, remained in the city of Hastinapur for several months. During his stay, he enjoyed strolling here and there. He used to drive on chariots along with Arjuna, and many warriors and soldiers used to follow them. So thus ends the purports of the humble servants of His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada, to the 10th canto, 71st chapter of the Srimad Bhagavatam, entitled, The Lord Travels to Indraprastha. So Indraprastha is also known as Khandava Prastha, same thing, same place, because it's situated in the Khandava forest. Just earlier here in this verse, it is said that descendants of Shibi, it used to be a place of King Shibi, where he resided. Shibi Maharaj, we know also for hospitality, right? He decided to offer parts of his body for satisfaction. Of course, he was tested by, I think, Agni and Indra, came in the form of hawk and a pigeon. So King Shibi, he was wandering throughout the forest, Khandava Prastha forest, which is described as extremely magnificent forest, very opulent, very attractive, very fragrant, very opulent with fruits and roots and so many different things. A very amazing place. And then he came across certain articles of worship, and just then appeared Narada Muni and Parvata Muni, who were very good close friends in that forest as well. So of course, after worshipping them, addressing, he inquired that all these different pots, all these different articles of paraphernalia of worship, of many valuable substances, how come this is in this forest? How come this is here? So then Narada Muni explained, he said, this is because King Indra, after he was saved from Hiranyakashipu, after Lord Nrsimhadev killed Hiranyakashipu, protected Prahlad, then Indra resumed his position as a gratitude. He inquired from Lord Brahma, how can I offer some worship? How can I express my gratitude towards the Lord? What should I do? So then Lord Brahma told him that you go to this place, go to this forest, go to this Khandava Prastha, and perform a very elaborate worship of the Lord. And Indra did. He performed so many wonderful different kinds of yagyas and pujas and so on, that Lord Vishnu, Brahma and Shiva also personally came and accept the oblations, accept the offerings. So Indra was very satisfied. So this is why prastha, he offered so many. Prastha means like a measurement. Indra prastha, measurements of jewels and so many different opulent things that he offered, that he dedicated to them. So this is why it's called Khandava Prastha, Indra Prastha, on the bank of Yamuna river. So we hear here that Arjuna also with Krishna, they were strolling and they came to this forest. Agni had indigestion and he was trying to devour that forest. to relieve himself, because so much ghee and so many things are put in, so many yagyas that have been performed, and just couldn't find any relief. He couldn't function. He couldn't perform his duties. So he was requesting how can he appease his, how can he get relief from his indigestion, that malady that he had. So then, in spite of trying to burn the forest, Indra would always shower rain, heavy rain, to extinguish that fire. So why was that? Because Indra's friend, Takshaka was Indra's friend, he was residing in that forest. We know, anyway, that's another story in Mahabharata, when Takshaka was being called to be burned into the fire, by King Janamejaya, all the serpents, because the serpent bit his father. I mean, it was the cause, Takshaka was cause of the death of Parikshit Maharaj and so forth. And he heard from his Utanka, the sage who performed the sacrifice, how they stole earrings of Aditi, and so many stories in Mahabharata. So they said, these serpents, they're all just making trouble. They're so envious. There's no use of them. We better burn them. We just better get rid of them. So then Takshaka, when he was finally called, then he took shelter of Indra. He took shelter, and Indra hid him beneath his chadar, so that he wouldn't be. But the power of mantra was such that Takshaka was falling. And then since he was holding, and Indra was holding him, he also started falling into the fire. Then he let him go. He had to let him go. So they were friends, but Indra had to let him go, because he thought, now I'm also going to get burned. Of course, Takshaka was saved. Then there was interference within that yagya, and he was hovering he wasn't burned. And some other not so bad snakes, they were saved. So anyway, so Takshaka was residing there, and in Khandava Prastha, but Agni wanted to burn that forest, and Indra was not allowing. So he requested Arjuna and Krishna. We see here, they were also, Krishna was performing so many different activities, strolling around the city and sporting and so many different things. So they were in this Khandava Prastha. So when Agni approached them in the form of Brahmana, and he made a request that, please grant me the desire to honor something, and then he said that I don't need ordinary things, I want this forest. So then Krishna and Arjuna, they stationed themselves, they agreed on two sides of the forest with their chariots. And Agni being requested also, he said, Arjuna, I have such a mighty arms, but I don't have a powerful bow that will hold my power, that I can display. So then Agni requested Varuna, and they both gave him Gandiva bow, inexhaustible quiver of arrows. They gave him horses, silver white horses, and a chariot, incredible chariot. So Arjuna, and then Krishna said at that time also, he was re-given back Sudarshan Chakra, and Varuna gave him the Kamodaki mace to fight. So they all started, anyway, it's a long chapter description given in Mahabharata, how they burned that forest and all the inhabitants. But why they burn all the inhabitants? Of course, no forest fire, it's wonderful when all the creatures burn. I don't know if you remember some years back in Australia, there were very horrifying sights. So much land has been burned and so many living entities have been killed, millions and millions and millions and millions. It happens, it's a very heavy, very, very purifying but ghastly sight. So they were doing this. Why? Because in that forest many demons resided. So then also what was the boon given by Brahma to Indra when he performed that sacrifice is that's going to become a place of liberation. So anybody being killed there, he will achieve liberation. So for those demoniac living entities who assumed different forms in different species also. So Krishna and Arjuna, they were just cutting them down. So that Agni can devour them. By that fat and marrow, he can relieve himself from indigestion. So there's a long story, and even demigods came to Indra's aid. He was hurrying so many torrents of rain and so many different things, and demigods were fighting with Indra, with Arjuna, but he created with the power of that bow and the arrows like we have now. He covered the whole forest with the arrows, and the water was just sliding down, was not able to penetrate and extinguish the fire. And they killed so many creatures, they were half burned, and they were just chopping them off and here and there, so many. Anyway, it's a big description. And Indra was hurling, even took Mandara's peak and threw it down. But Arjuna shattered it with his arrows. So that killed also even more living entities. And Agni was able to devour them. So then Indra was satisfied later on with Arjuna. And then they desisted the fight, and Agni was able to accomplish his cause. And it is said that only few living beings survived. And who were these few living beings? One was, Takshaka was gone to Kurukshetra. He wasn't there. So his son survived, and Mayadanava, and 4 birds, which were actually sages they took that form. And nobody else, everybody else was finished in that forest. And then of course, here's the description. Mayadanava, he took shelter. Actually, Krishna wanted to kill him, but he took shelter of Arjuna. That's another point. That's another point. So he took shelter. By taking shelter of Arjuna, just like Kali took shelter of Parikshit Maharaj. So when somebody takes shelter, then king is obliged to offer him protection. So because of that, Krishna spared him. And as a gratitude, Mayadanava built this incredible palace, so many descriptions of which Duryodhana was so envious. Incredible heavenly palace. Mayadanava, and presented Arjuna and Krishna with so many gifts as a gratitude. So that's also the interesting that Indra, he was offering protection to Takshaka, but the demons also, they took shelter of that protection to Takshaka, and they were hiding in this forest. That's for some other discussion. Anyway, so we'll stop here. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Any questions or comments? Yes.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Thank you very much, Prabhuji, for describing this pastime very wonderfully. Prabhuji, as is mentioned here in this pastime, and you mentioned that how many devotees have so much attraction for Krishna, and they are so joyful when Lord Krishna arrived, and so happy and eager to take darshan, like women in Indraprasth, Yudhishthira Maharaj, Kunti Maharani. Everybody was so overwhelmed by Lord presence and seeing him after a long time. But I see myself at my conditioned state, my attraction for grossly, when prasadam starts, what prasadam is there, that attraction is there, like very joyful.
That's eagerness for prasadam, not different than Krishna. Yes. So that's fine.
And certainly, Puji, like
you're extending it for others, but I'm also eager. I'm joking.
And certainly, I see Puji for getting recognition. So that attraction is there. So what practices or what will make this transformation, that eagerness to serve the Lord or take His darshan, or what? So how the transformation will happen?
Well, that's the ruchi asakti. Of course, it's not all just linear kind of advancement. It's like Ramakana Maharaj explains, it's like, it's like this, like a graph. Sometimes we have some ruchi, sometimes we have some asakti. It manifests. So, how to develop more eagerness? Trying to be more absorbed, trying to have no time for Maya, trying to become engaged every moment. How to do that? Well, we are here, we can say we are fortunate. Some or other devotees remind us of Krishna, devotees push us towards Krishna. It's more difficult on our own to do that. Like we know when we go home, how much more struggle that there is. So that's Krishna. But again, we have to develop desire. Whatever desire we cultivate, Krishna will facilitate. Krishna will yam vapis marambavam tyajantante kalevar. He will respond. So cultivating eagerness, whatever eagerness we have, we focus on that, and everything else will manifest from that kind of eagerness. More eagerness will manifest. I remember when I came to Krishna consciousness, I didn't like certain aspects of it, and certain I did. And by cultivation of those which I did, I developed taste for the others. So in the course of time, with purification, the more taste develops for practically everything else. And then you hope to come to that level of Jayananda. He was doing everything for Krishna. It didn't matter what, no? As a Vaishnava, not just as something that it's conditional position, but as a constitutional position. Not just I like this because, I'm conditioned to this or to that. So with more engagement, with more purification that comes with it, the more taste will develop. Rasovarjam rasopyasya param drishva nivartanta. Every little small advancement counts. Okay, one more.
Thank you very much, Prabhuji. Prastha means, you said, measurement.
Yeah, that's described as a measurement, certain amount.
How come this there's a Kandav Prastha and Indra Prastha? How it got its name? And now...
Indra offered so many prasthas of jewels. So that's why Indra Prastha.
To whom?
To Krishna. He worshipped after. I told the story when Hiranyakashipu he was killed by Nrsimhadev. There's as a gratitude Indra performed this sacrifice and worship.
He gave a lot of measurements to Krishna.
Yeah, he offered to Krishna.
Right now, where is this Indra Prastha?
Modern Delhi, New Delhi.
Is there any remnants, parts of the building?
No, nothing's left.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Gaur Premanande.